On today's show, I'm going to show you how I got this guitar tone using only plugins in Reaper. Let's check it out. Hey friends, welcome back to Studio 428 Productions. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to show you how I got the load guitar tones for my guitar covers using only plugins in Reaper. Before we jump in, I would like to give a shout out to Alexander Borensenko 6676 for requesting this video. If there's a video you would like to request, either a cover or another tutorial video like this, drop a comment down below. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit the subscribe and the little bell icon so you get notified every time a new video drops. And if you'd also like to support my work, you can do so by buying me a coffee. There's a link down in the description below. Let's jump into today's lesson. So I have Reaper open. Unfortunately, I did not keep the original session from the actual recording of the song, so I had to go in and re-record these DIs for this video. I have started keeping the sessions from my recordings, so if you guys would like to see a specific mix setup for a song, let me know. I'm happy to show you my approach to mixing the songs that go up on my channel. So I have 5 different guitar tones set up. I have a left clean, a right clean. These are James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett's clean parts played during the intro and the verses. I have a clean lead, which is the slide guitar solo played about halfway through the song. I have 2 rhythm guitars panned hard left and hard right, summed up to a rhythm guitar bus. And my last tone is a lead guitar tone, which is the overdubs and the guitar solo. The way this is going to work is I'm going to show you what the guitars sound like in isolation. I'll show you the plugins on the chain, and then we'll have a listen to what it sounds like within the context of the full mix. Starting off with the intro guitar tone, let's hear what this sounds like in isolation. Let's jump into the mixing window, see what plugins I'm using. So first up in the chain is Dr. Phase from Audiority. This is a clone of the MXR Phase 90, a really popular phaser pedal. I set this to around 22% or 0.33 hertz. No real rhyme or reason why I picked those numbers. I just turned the knob until it started to sound good. I didn't adjust any of the other settings or the mix. One cool thing about this plugin is that it's freeware. So if you want to get a copy of it, you can pop over to Audiority and grab yourself a copy. I will have links to all of the plugins that I'm using down in the description below. These are not affiliate links, but if you like them and you want to grab copies for yourselves, go ahead. Please be aware not all of these are free. Some of these are paid plugins. Moving on, next we're going to check out the Nembrini Audio Jazz Chorus. This is a paid plugin and a favorite of mine for recording clean guitar tones. Starting off with the preamplifier pedals, the only thing that's engaged is a compressor. I actually didn't set this. This came just up in the default template that was set up in the amplifier, but I like the sound, so I just left it as is. The main amplifier settings from left to right, I have my bright switch engaged, volume 2, treble 7, middle 2, bass 2, distortion 0, and reverb 0. You notice over here I actually have the chorus and vibrato section disengaged because I'm not using them for this tone. Moving on to the next screen is the impulse response. When you load this plugin up, you're going to get this cabinet simulator with microphones that you can make all these sorts of adjustments. If you can go ahead and set your tone up in there if you like, but for this I just went over to the impulse response loader and loaded an Electro M201 and an Electro SM57 and just left them at the volume that the loader was set at, as I thought that sounded pretty good. So those 2 impulse responses actually come with the Nembrini Audio plugin. So if you purchase this plugin, you'll get those impulse responses as well. I have no output effects. In terms of guitar for this, I recorded using my Epiphone Explorer in the neck position, and I had the volume pulled out into the passive voice to give a bit more of a mellow sound. Let's check it out one more time in isolation, and then we'll see what it sounds like within the context of the full mix. And now within the context of the full mix. Moving on, we're going to check out the pre-chorus. So we're going to look at the rhythm and the lead guitar tone that I used in the mix for Bleeding Me. Before we jump into the mixing window, we're going to quickly talk about the volume automation because that does make a difference in the final mix. So when the lead guitars are kicking in, I am reducing the rhythm guitars bus by 1 dB using the trim plugin. Why I like the trim plugin is because that is inserted after the plugins but before the master fader. So I can reduce it by 1 dB, but then I can still make adjustments to my master fader. I also have the right guitar reduced by 3 dB, again using the trim plugin. And what that's doing is that is reducing the volume in the right speaker because the solo is coming 50% from the right, making a little bit more space, but you're still getting the rhythm guitars behind supporting that solo. Let's go ahead and listen to what this sounds like in isolation, and then we'll jump in and look at the plugin chains. All right, jumping over to the mixing window, here are the plugins I'm using for the rhythm and lead guitar tones. For the rhythm tones, I'm using the Amp Rev C by Bogren Digital. It's a really cool plugin, really easy to use. You only have one knob, really hard to kind of screw up the tone. And I just left this set to the scratches here, which is where they recommend as a good starting point. And for the impulse response, I have loaded a C-Cal Marshall 1960 cabinet with V30 speakers, as that's pretty similar to what the types of speakers that Metallica was using in the 1990s. And the right channel is exactly the same settings. I literally just copied this plugin over. Moving on to the lead guitar, I have it going into the Amp Knob BDM 410 JVH. This is a copy of a Marshall amplifier. I'm not sure which one specifically, so if you know, go ahead and drop it down, comments down below. I have it set to mode number 3, the boost pedal engaged, and the gain set to 4. I didn't change the cabinet this time, just left it on the standard modern cabinet, and then turned the output down because, again, this one was a very loud plugin. That is then going into the vocal rider, and what vocal rider is doing is helping keep the sound of the lead guitar consistent relative to the rhythm guitar tracks. The way I have this set up is I'm taking my rhythm guitar bus and I'm sending it to my lead guitar on tracks 3 and 4, which is creating a side chain. So what this plugin is doing is listening to my rhythm guitar bus and adjusting the volume of my lead guitar proportional to that. So the setup for this is the target is -18. I left the vocal and musical sensitivity at 0, and I switched it to fast mode. I set the output volume to -2.6, and I found it was getting a little bit loud as it was riding the volume of the guitar solo up a little bit to keep it consistent over the solo. So let's play back the tracks in isolation again and watch the rider knob as it's going to go up and down to adjust the volume of my lead guitar to keep it consistent over my rhythm guitars. So that's something I use for every lead guitar sound, as I find it really helps the lead guitars sit well over top of the rhythms in a mix. Let's check this out one more time in isolation, and then we'll go through and check it out within the context of the full mix. One more time within the context of the full mix. Moving on, we're going to be looking at the slide guitar solo. Let's check out what it sounds like in isolation. So in terms of volume automation, I've just pulled down my clean guitar that I showed you earlier in the video by 1 dB using the trim plugin again, and I have this panned 100% to the left. The slide guitar solo itself is panned 50% to the right. And let's jump into the mix window and look at the plugins. So first up is the L1 limiter from Waves. I have this engaged on the slide guitar track before the amplifier. All this is doing is cutting down on the transients and help making the sustain a little bit louder. The reason why I've done this is because I played my slide guitar with a pick, as I usually do, and the transients were very, very loud relative to the sustain. Because there's no distortion to help smooth that out, I've used a limiter instead to cut down on the transients and help increase the sustain. Let's have a listen to it with the L1 engaged and disengaged, and you'll see that when it's disengaged, the slide guitar sound is going to completely disappear from the mix. As you can see, night and day difference in terms of the volume of the slide guitar. Let's check out the amplifier settings that I'm using next. For this, I'm using the Amp Knob BDM 410 JVH again. I have it in clean mode, which is mode number 1, and the boost pedal disengaged. The gain is set to 0, and the output is set a lot higher at 1.1 dB this time. Of course, that makes sense because there's no gain added. I need to make that up with the output volume in order for the sound to be heard. Impulse responses, I have the Bogren Digital CL Telecast Me. I don't recall offhand whether this was a free plugin or it came with a plugin pack that I paid for. I do have a link to Bogren Digital down below, so if you like the sound, you can check it out for yourself. Let's check these out one more time in isolation, then we'll see what they sound like within the context of the mix. And now in the context of the full mix. Moving right along, we're going to check out the riffs from the bridge. This is the same heavy guitar tone that we used previously on the pre-chorus. The reason why I wanted to show you this is so you can hear what it sounds like with the chugging palm mute. Now, in the final mix, I do have some additional post-processing, specifically some C4 to pull down some of the muddy areas during the palm mutes. These are going to sound a little bit more louder and explosive in isolation than they do in the final mix, but otherwise the tone is exactly the same. Let's have a listen, and then we'll check them out within the context of the full mix. And now in the context of the full mix. Next up is going to be the guitar solo. This is again the Stratocaster in the bridge position. This time I'm going through my wah pedal and a clean boost to make up a little bit of gain because there's a bit of volume drop in my wah. And that is going into the same plugin chain that we used for the pre-chorus lead sound. The only difference is now I'm panning this pretty much right up the center. It's a little bit off, but that's okay because the guitar solo I want coming up right up the middle of the song, so that it kind of stands out, kind of like a vocal performance. So let's have a listen to what the guitar solo sounds like in isolation, and then we'll check it out within the context of the full mix. And once again within the context of the full mix. Okay, and so last up we have 3 effects tracks that I want to talk about super quick. First up is the Sound City Studios plugin from United Audio. So this is a replica of Sound City Studios, a really famous recording studios in Los Angeles. And I have 2 rooms set up, both U67. So the first one is this closer mic to the amplifier, and the second one is a farther away mic from the amplifier. This is not a typical reverb plugin which uses delays to create an illusion of an ambient space. Instead, this one is more of an impulse response. So it's kind of a capture of the actual space that you can then feed new sounds into and recreate the sound of the studio space. I have this set up for a 4x12 tight, so it has all of these sound barriers in there. Let's go ahead and have a listen to what this sounds like in solo. As you can hear, pretty cool sounding, very much gives a lot of depth to the sound. Let's check out the isolated guitars, and I'm going to turn it off and back on again so you can hear what is adding into the sound of the guitars. Very subtle, but as you can see, it's adding a little bit of extra depth when I turn the plugin back on, and I really dig it. I find it helps really kind of gel the guitars with the mix a little bit better. Next up is the guitar delay, and this is only being used on my lead guitars. For this, I'm using BSA delays. For the recording of the song, I use the tempo section so I could actually sync the delays with the BPM of the song. So that's a fun little pro tip for you. If you're looking to make your delays and reverbs gel a little bit better with the music, set the reverb decay or the delay time to the tempo of the track. And the way you do that is you divide 60,000 by the BPM, and that'll give you the delay or the reverb time for a quarter note. You can then half it to get an 8th note and half that to get a 16th note, and so on and so forth. It's a real cool little trick, and when you do that, the reverb and the delays are going to be decaying in time with the music, so they're going to sound a little bit more like they're part of the music and not an extra effect layered on. So it helps them sit a little bit more subtly in the mix, but we'll still add that extra little bit of ambience that you're looking for. Additional settings in here, I have my feedback set to 20%. So what that means is each repeat is going to be 20% of the volume of the repeat that preceded it. So I'm going to be getting about 2, maybe 3 repeats on this delay before it completely dies away. The reverb is set to 14% and the size to 68. I just set those knobs till they sounded correct. And I have the high cut set to around 70% because I want to roll off the high end of my delay so that it sits a little bit further back into the mix. Let's check out what the delay sounds like in solo. And now within the context of the mix, I'm going to turn the delay off and back on, and you can hear what this is adding to the lead guitar sound. Unlike the guitar room, this one I find is a bit more obvious. The lead sound sounds completely flat without the delays, and once I add them back in, it just kind of helps them pop and kind of sound like they're sitting in a space rather than just coming out of a dry speaker. Next up, I have a track that I call Secret Spice, and this is a fun little trick that I use on all of my guitar sounds. So I'm using a Lexicon delay unit. This is a clone from PSP AudioWare, and this is an old Andy Wallace trick. So the story goes that he was working on a Slayer record. I think it might have been Seasons in the Abyss, but don't quote me on that. And he had left this unit on. When they came back the next day, they played the guitars through it by mistake, and they really liked the sound. What this is adding is a parallel distortion sound that is really cool. It's going to add a lot of low end and lower mids back into the guitar tone. This also adds a little bit of a comb filtering effect that helps the bass cut through a little bit better in the mix. So the settings that I use, the delay is set to 0. The output I kind of adjust based on the song. I settled on 9. Sometimes I have it all the way cranked. Sometimes I have it backed off. Feedback is set to 100%. So there's no delay and 100% feedback. My output you set to wherever you need to, and my input I have cranked to 12 dBs. What this is going to be doing is driving the input of the unit and creating some extra distortion. And this plugin does a really great job of recreating the analog distortion that you would get if you were to drive this unit really hard. I have the processing set to full. You can set it to limbs or legacy. You get slightly different sounds for each, but just know that they are louder than the full, so you would have to adjust your output volume. I have this then going into the Waves SSL EV2. I'm not using any of the channel strip, and I'm just using the stereo widening. I have extra wide engaged, and I have it set to about 18%. And this is just making the parallel distortion a little bit bigger, which helps separate and make the guitar sound a little bit wider. Let's go ahead and listen to what this is sounding like, and then I'm going to turn it off and back on again, and you can see how much this is adding to the guitar sound. As you can hear, it's adding a lot more low end, lower mids, and just kind of really beefing up and filling out, rounding out that guitar sound. So it's a trick that I really like to use, and I use it on pretty much every mix that I do on the channel. And that's it for today's video. If you liked the video today, go ahead and drop a like and a comment down below. And if there's a specific video or a song you'd like to see on the channel, go ahead and drop that down in the comments as well. I'm happy to put on the channel what you guys would like to hear. That's it for me today. I'll see you next time.